Hey guys, welcome to SideLine Films tutorial on how to make our opening title in Adobe After Effects. We're going to be doing it all internally. Can use Andrew Kramer's optical flares, but there's no reason why you can't do it with the internal one, so you can do this all inside After Effects without any extra software. So let's take a look at what we're going to be making. Okay, so here we are in After Effects. What we're going to do first of all is create a new composition. We call this logo 2, make it about 10 seconds, whatever resolution you want. I'm going to go for 1080p HD. Just want to delete that, sorry. Okay, then take out your background texture, which in this case we're going to use Grunge 17. So bring that out there. And scale this up just to fit the comp there. That should be fine. Okay, we're going to make that a 3D layer, and then we're going to create some text. So we click here. I'm going to go with SideLine there, and I want to create two text layers, which you'll see why a bit later, and then films there. Okay, so drag these down to where you want them. I'm just going to fill this up and scale them up. That should be fine like that. Pop that there and scale that up also. If you hold down shift while doing that, you can keep them in proportion and scale. Okay, so now we've got those. Next thing you want to do is go into here, click the animate button and enable per character 3D, and you want to do that for the other texture there as well. Animate per character 3D. Okay, and what you'll notice there is it's created two little boxes in the 3D bit there instead of one box. You need to see that, otherwise this effect just won't work. Okay, so we'll start with films. We're going to click animate again, and we're going to click position, animate the position. Now what you want to do is move over, say about 2 seconds into the time there, set a keyframe, move back to the beginning, and on the Z-axis, which is this one here, just move that out in Z-space, so it's just out of the view there, and that should be fine. And what you'll get there then is this animating in like that. Okay, we'll do the same again for SideLine, animate position, move over to about 2 seconds there, set a keyframe, move back to the beginning, and again move this off out of view there, something like that should be good, and you basically have that effect of them coming in. You can offset them, but we'll get to that a bit later. The next thing we're going to do is, if we move down here, you click range selector, and move to about 2 seconds, but where your text finishes animating, and you want to hit the offset here. Just hit the stopwatch at 100% and set that there. Then move back to the beginning and set a stopwatch keyframe for 0%. Okay. And what that's going to basically give us is the letters coming in almost one by one there. Now we're going to play around with that a bit more. If we just do that for films again there, range selector, set a keyframe at the offset for 100% there, and at the beginning I'm going to make that 0. And that will give us the effect of letters coming in one by one. Now, in this case, we want the films to come in just a little bit after SideLine, so I'm just going to move those up maybe. So when the E finishes, we'll kind of get that kind of effect there. And we'll maybe punch these in just a bit shorter. And again with the SideLine there, maybe punch these keyframes just a bit shorter. Okay, so basically we're going to have this effect now. SideLine coming in first, and then the films. What you can do as well, which is the last thing we're going to do here, is if you go into, say, the films one and the position here, so you want to go to the first keyframe for the films. Just set this off in Z space a bit more, say around 2000 should be good, negative 2000. And what that's going to do is the SideLine will come in more than one letter at a time, and films will come in almost one letter at a time. The further you offset that into Z space, the more accurate you'll get one letter coming in at a time. Slow it down a bit, maybe even speed it up, sorry. You'll get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. Let's just play that back, see what we've got there. And that's good enough right now. So that's our basic text animated. I mean, go into more detail, play around with it rather, get it how you're looking. But that's going to do for us right about now. What we're going to do now is just move over here so we can see it. And we're going to go and find our other texture, which is Grunjo 4, and we're going to drop that on top of films, and again on top of SideLine. Now toggle your switches, and we're going to change the the track matte, sorry. You want these to be above of the text layers, and then we're going to change it to Luma Matte, and again Luma Matte there. And what that's done there is basically given our text the texture background while still keeping our colour. So that's what we're going for there. One other thing we're going to do to this text is we're going to add an effect, type in bevel, and bevel edges, and we want to drop that on top of the text layer there, films, and you can see what that's done there. Is added some kind of blocking. It makes it look 3D. It doesn't make it 3D, but it gives it that 3D look. You can play around with the angle of the light here. Play around with the light intensity, make it a bit brighter, so make this side brighter here and this side darker. And you can play around with how thick the edge is, make it a bit bigger. We're going to go with 0.10 is good enough for us. Even change the colour of the light, but I'm going to keep it white. But by all means, play around with it, get it how you're looking. And I'm going to copy that, go into the SideLine text layer and paste it into there. So what we should have is the effect mirrored on both of those there. So now, let's see where we're at so far, just scrub through that. That's looking good. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is make our background a little bit more different rather than just keeping the same texture there. So again, we're going to type in here CC Light Burst is what we're looking for. So drag that out on top of your texture there. And you can see there it's created a nice interesting looking effect. I mean, you can do whatever you want with your background, but this is what we went for. What you can do here is play around with the ray length, maybe make it a bit bigger, create that. You can change all different kinds of things here, but we're just going to keep it as it is. Play around with where you want this center burst to be from. You can move it over here, wherever you want. But for simplicity and time on this, we're just going to keep it here. I mean, maybe drag the intensity up to about 120, just to give it a bit more look there. So that's what we're going with there. Okay, right, the next thing we want to do is create a new solid. Make it whatever colour, black looks good. Okay, we're going to call this Optical Flares. Now you can use the inbuilt optical flares that comes with After Effects, but we're just for this going to use the Video Copilot optical flares there. Just going to drop that onto that layer there. Now I'm not going to go into too much detail about this because you can go to videocopilot.net, have a look at the product page, have a look at some of the tutorials on there, and they'll go into much more detail about it. But I'll go through kind of what we went through and how we did it so you get a basic understanding. Now it layers the optical flare on top of your black layer. Now we want to change this render mode to on transparent, and that will give the flare on top of what we've already created. Now I'm going to take this point, I'm going to push it to about there, and I'm going to take the center point and push it just off center about there, and then maybe pull this in a bit more here. And what we want to do is find a point in where our text stops animating, and about there looks good. Maybe trim that off just so we know where we are. Okay, now if we go into the options, this is the optical flares options. Now we chose the blindness preset there. This is from the presets 2. And you can view it in the window there, which is pretty cool. This is the one we was going for. I mean, there's plenty of others on there you can play around with, see how they react, but just for this tutorial we'll go for this one. You can even go in and create your own ones, edit them, but again, as I say, we'll go to the videocopilot.net and they've got some great tutorials on there about this product. So that's going to update that there, and obviously that is far too bright, so we'll just drop the intensity to about 50 for now. That looks good. Okay, next thing we're going to do is animate the position. So if we set a keyframe here, this is where we want it, and then we hit U, we can see that keyframe. Move out, move up to about 4 seconds or so, and animate that off over there. So what you get now is this optical flare moving up over there quite nicely. Maybe if you want it just a bit longer, just punch that over. Okay, now obviously it looks a bit weird that just snapping on like that, so we're obviously going to create a brightness keyframe. So if we set a keyframe at about here for the brightness, again hit U, and we can see our brightness keyframe, and about that point there set another keyframe, and then maybe just a bit further on there another keyframe, and of course when it's out there a final keyframe. Then we want this to be 0, this to be 50, which is good, and that to be 50, which is good, and this to be 0. Okay, so what we're getting here is a fade on of the optical flare, stays on at that intensity, and a fade off as it goes off to the edge there. So that's kind of what we're looking for. We could maybe speed that, slow it down just a touch. That's looking good for us right there. Okay, so that's basic the optical flares. Again, you can use it, the internal one that comes with After Effects. That should be fine, no problems at all. So we're looking quite good so far. We've got our text there. Next thing we want to do around this point is we want to fade off our background layer. So if we hit T for the opacity, set a keyframe here at 100%, and then move over to about this point here, and maybe set that to 0. Maybe a bit too slow, maybe push that in just a bit. What it's going to give us here is background fading off nicely there, left with the solid text on the black background, and then we'll fade that off at the end. Now because our text has got alpha around the back, we've actually just sitting on alpha there, as you can see. Now we want to put a black background in, so add a new solid, black solid, call this background, and just drop this to the bottom. And what that will do now is we haven't got any alpha there, we've got a black background, which is what we want. So let's just quickly scrub through that. We've got a text coming on, a flare going over there, and a background fading out. Okay, and then maybe about this point we want to fade off the whole comp, but we'll do that in a bit. So that's looking good. So we want it maybe about 7 seconds. There we go. Okay, trim that up there. Trim comp to work area. Now we're not rendering anything else that we don't need there. So that's looking good. Next thing we want to do is create some camera shake as the flare is coming off, just to give it a bit more life. Now what I'm going to do for this is pre-compose everything. So select all that, composition, layer, pre-compose, and we'll call this logo for wiggle. And now we've got everything we created there just in one timeline. Now what we can quickly do is do our fade in, so maybe move on to about when the text starts there. That's good for an opacity of 100. Move on, set that to 0. So we've got a quick fade on there. And at the end, text fade off at about this point here. Set a keyframe. And about there, set that to 0. Looking good. Okay, now next thing we want to do is obviously create our camera shake. So find the point where our flare starts, which is about there. So we've got our mark. Then we're going to go to Layer, Effect, Expression Controls, and Slider Control. Okay, next thing we want to do is find, if we hit Shift P, get our position down, is Alt click the stopwatch on position, and we're going to type an expression in here, which is wiggle, brackets about say 8, comma, and then take the pick whip and link it to the slider control. Close another bracket and some colon, whatever that is there. Click away, make sure that takes effect. Yeah, that's fine. Now what this is doing is, if we add the wiggle effect to the whole thing here, we'll have wiggle throughout all this bit, everything. It'll be wiggling non-stop, which we don't want. We only want to wiggle through this optical flares coming off the side there. So what this slider control enables us to do is tell the position and the wiggle expression when to go up. So if we set an keyframe of just a couple of bits before for 0 on the slider, set a keyframe, and if we hit U, we've got a keyframe there. Move over to when it begins, and we'll maybe set this to, let's have a look here. Maybe a bit more. About 50 looks good, sorry. Okay, and what that's going to do is wiggle there. And we want to find when it stops, kind of reaches the end, so about there, set another keyframe, and just a couple of frames off, fade that down to 0. So what we've got there is our wiggle going on and fading off. Nice and easy. Now I'm going to quickly set these keyframes to easy ease, just to make it look a bit smoother. And basically that will ease in the amount and then ease it back out as well. Okay, so we're looking pretty good there. Now obviously if we look here, we've got some black edges which we don't want, so we're going to add another effect called motion tile. Drop that in there, and what this does is basically replicates the edge. So if we click mirror edges first, and you want to use the output width and the output height, so maybe something like 130 for the width, and again for the height 130 should be good, not too much, and that basically fills in our edges there. So if we play through that, you can see all our edges are covered up nicely in there. Okay, let's quickly have a look at that in full res. Okay, so that's a bit quicker than the original, but all you've got to really do now is just add your sound effects onto that, and that's basically looking good. Just render that out, and yeah, just play around with adding your effects. And that's basically it. Okay guys, so that's the end of the tutorial. Don't forget to check out our website, which is jakavanagh.co.uk. We've got a film website there, and also if you're into the lighting part, we do lighting as well. You can follow us on Twitter, which is @cavstar89, or check out our YouTube channel. We'll upload videos on there as well, which is youtube.com/cavstar. We're going to be making a new short film. It's like a war, gun, guts, explosion stuff. It's going to be shooting on the 5th and 6th of March. So keep your eyes peeled for that, hopefully coming up the week, maybe the week after, the 5th and 6th of March. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe, Twitter and a website as well. Cheers.